types of sports with Schoode Tor. Football discussion on the internet.
Still the most emo introduction to a football halftime show in the history of football halftime shows, even when Coldplay played the fucking halftime of the Super Bowl, which was bad. I think it's bad now, Tor, with you're never not going to have Kendrick Lamar ever again as the halftime game. For me, that's just torture. But Coldplay was worse. Like, you got to be thankful for what you got, you know?
Yeah, I think the Kendrick Lamar halftime signing deal is a little bit knee-jerk after this summer, but I've been a fan of his since the early 2010s, so I can appreciate him getting the nod.
I know you can, because you're young and dumb and filled with cum. It is both types of sports. Thank you so much for joining us. It is Game Day edition. Now, Tor, do you know that we are not going to be alone on the broadcast today? Are you aware of that?
I've heard rumblings, but no confirmation. So going into this show, I just figured it was going to be you and I until I saw or heard differently.
This man, I like to consider him the East Side Dave of both types of sports, where he realizes there's a weakness in one of the hosts. I won't say which one, but it's one maybe that has some crippling anxiety and really seems to be falling apart in his life. And maybe this man is finally looking to get his shot in broadcasting and make something of himself behind a microphone. And I think perhaps his time is now. Johnny Cakes Allville looking for his opportunity here. The
What's
opportunity
up,
of a lifetime. Hello, Cakes. How are you, bud?
Thank you for having me. First and foremost, I have to right a wrong. Big Shooter gifted me with this sweet ass Judas Priest vest a while ago, and it's never gotten its props ever. So I'm giving it props here for everybody to see. Thank you, Big Shooter. This is not my normal style. This is more Kenny Kidd style, but I can rock a sleeveless vest, a little Judas Priest underneath. I can do double layered. So thank you, Big Shooter. That was very nice of you.
When I'm buying black denim Judas Priest studded vests, I mean, it would feel blasphemous that I didn't pick up one for you and one for Mr. Kidd, which I believe was the case. So I can't wait for when the three of us all go shirtless underneath the vests next time. Next time they come to town, and we can all take turns on Rob Halford making like a circus deal.
We could do that. I was gonna say maybe I can dress up as Rob Halford for Halloween. I don't know if that's the best costume for handing out treats to little children, but I love me some Rob Halford. Love the metal god. That's my guy.
Now, Tor, can you name one Judas Priest song?
Oh.
How old is Tor, by the way?
He's 25.
Thank you. 26
I'll say this:
now.
like a 25-year-old, for the most part. I mean, unless they're like a super headbanger and into like heavy metal history, probably shouldn't know that many Judas Priest songs, even though they are legends.
They're in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. They were featured prominently on Beavis and Butthead. They've been in pop culture enough, Cakes, where if Tor wasn't just obsessed with ringtone rap and 17 different versions of the same disc track, he should be. And by the way, a Junkies listener, and the Junkies played one Judas Priest song every single day for, I think, the entire time I worked at WJFK. So you should at least know that one, for God's sake.
Know that one. Should know Breaking the Law. Should know that one.
Well, there it is. Cat's out of the bag.
I don't think he's going to get it anyway, Chad. I think we're good.
Yeah. I like Rob Halford's dabbling with the Christmas music. I think that's always pretty strong. But
sure.
Cakes, I don't know if you've ever had a chance to check out "God Rest Ye Merry Gentlemen" by Rob Halford, but it is a banger, stone cold smash.
Well, I haven't, but I'll certainly be firing it up this Yuletide season, without a doubt.
All right. So Corey Reed is already upset. Johnny Cakes Allville taking grenades for Tor early. Yes, that is true, but that is Cakes is known to do that. Now, Tor, have you ever met John Allville?
This is the first time I've had the pleasure, and I'm trying to act like I haven't listened to this man since youth practice.
Yeah. Well, Cakes, you'd appreciate this because I like to pay it forward. You know me. I'm a good-natured guy. I'm a giver. Mm-hmm. When I first moved back to Washington, D.C. to do radio on WJFK, Cakes let me drive his Saturn Vue. I think for over a year, I abused that relationship and was tooling around fucking Fairfax in a Saturn Vue. Cakes, I bought Tor his car, and then he quit the show 3 straight times, like literally 3 times subsequently as soon as I did it. So your good nature inspired my good nature, and I've been paid back in spades.
Yeah, I mean, that's no way to repay Big Shooter Tor by just repeatedly quitting the show when he's trying to do a good thing.
It was a very, very nice thing that Dukes did, and I just got it inspected and passed on the second try this past week.
Yeah.
Awesome. I'll say this, Cakes. Tor's Mercedes make drab T-shirts of Mercedes look contemporary. That's all.
He's driving the really old school, like Mercedes from like the 70s or the 60s, maybe even further back.
There's some catalytic converters just bouncing off it down the fucking side of 28. Jeffrey Schools, we will be accepting super chats today. Thank you for the $1.99. There is some bad football being played today. There sure is.
Not kidding.
Let's start with it. I'm happy Cakes is here. It's good to see him. I always love doing anytime. I don't know if this is not radio, but whatever this is, I enjoy doing it with Cakes. I texted Cakes Tor 10 minutes before kickoff, and I said, "You are the fantasy guru. This has been your role for 30 years. Do I start Sam Darnold or Derek Carr?" I think there was a third awful quarter. Jared Goff.
Yeah.
And he unequivocally told me to start Derek Carr, who I believe has 2 points today in fantasy football.
Yeah, it's not great. Now, to be fair, I also started Derek Carr. I said, you know what? I don't want all the rushing yards, those pesky rushing yards that Jaden Daniels gives me. Why would I want those? I'll take a statue like Derek Carr. Now, also, like, they've been doing nothing but just destroying other defenses through the first 2 weeks. And we saw with this Philly defense, they look super vulnerable coming into this game, but they've apparently figured something out because they are fucking stoning Derek Carr right now. It is ridiculous. I mean, it's 7-3. There's 11 minutes left in the fourth, and the two teams combined have scored 10 points, and the Saints in the first 2 weeks scored 91. So, Big Shooter, I apologize for the bad advice, but you should have known better than to ask me because I am a cooler and a mush, my friend. You know that.
Now, I've been doing this for the past 3.5 to 4 years, Cakes, but I'm going to get to do it while you're here, which is fantastic. The Eagles' defense is, may I?
Yes.
Hating. They are.
They are.
And all of a sudden, they're shutting down what has been an unstoppable juggernaut. I'm watching this game now. I guess the Eagles are now up 7-3. What has happened to Jalen Hurts' psyche, boys? Tor, let's go ahead and start with you. We've been talking about this for weeks. He had a horrible interception in the red zone, trying to force it into Devontae Smith-Pelly. Congratulations to him and retiring from hockey and then resuscitating his career in the NFL. And then another fumble, and the game last week ended on a horrible turnover from him. That seems to be his MO. They are 3-7 in their last 10 games, including that horrific shellacking at the hands of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the postseason. I think what you have to find out before you find anything else out is what's going on in between the ears of Jalen Hurts. Because if he keeps shitting the ball out every time they need it some points, it doesn't really matter what's going on with the defense of the rest of this team.
I'd hate to think that the first time ever elite Atlanta Falcons defense was able to actually break a machine or an opponent for the next week afterwards. But I don't think it's strictly that. I think Hurts can't find consistency in one specific thing in the offense where he can do it well. And it seems like every time Philly's on offense, they're trying a new wave. They're trying, all right, we're going to take a deep passes this whole drive. We're going to try to go intermediate shorts. We're just going to grind it up the middle with Saquon Barkley. I don't know exactly why he can't find any footing in any of the major key points for playing quarterback for them, but he's not consistent. It doesn't seem like he's comfortable without AJ Brown on the field. So maybe that's the key. Maybe having a big dumb Jason Kelce at center and big tall AJ Brown out wide will help him more. But it doesn't look good 3 games in for Philly and their offensive woes.
Yeah, I think missing A.J. Brown is a huge part of it. And you also are going to have growing pains with the new offensive coordinator in Kellen Moore, who our guy Drab T-shirt has just a long-dated love affair with, stretching back to his days at Boise State. So it's just, I think it's just going to take some time for him to adjust. Having your number one alpha wideout missing the game, and then all of the pressure then falls on Devontae Smith, who's better cast as a number 2 than a number 1. I think that also hurts this offense. But like, he's throwing picks into the end zone. He's fumbling at midfield and just turning the ball over at inopportune times. That has to be tidied up going forward. Or, this is an Eagles team that's going to struggle against any sort of competition throughout the season.
I'm with you guys, but they add Jahan Dotson, who's at least a guy that can fucking go out there and stretch the field. And then Saquon Barkley was looking like an MVP candidate the first week of this. It's not like he doesn't have other weapons. How much of it, though, do you think that this buffoon is the one that is in charge? I mean, yeah, see ya. If you go on YouTube and you just type in Nick Sirianni, it's a lot of him just doing stupid shit, like arguing with fans on the sideline of the Colts game, arguing with the refs, telling them that he's allowed to be on the field. I just think that if you need a quarterback whisperer, he's got a quote of Saquon's dad coached him hard, so I'm going to coach him hard. And he responds to that. Saquon, does Jalen Hurts seem to you guys to be the type of player that responds really well to a hardo getting in his face and grabbing his face mask? He seems like the exact opposite to me.
He seems like a guy that likes to be pampered and praised, just given the way he speaks in post game. Like he wants to be a cool guy, and he won a lot of games, which makes you cool because you're a winner. But once you start dropping, the cool facade starts, shattering, and now everyone's looking at you like, oh, this is on me now? I'm Jalen Hurts. Look, I have my sweet goatee and my fresh fade, and I'm big and strong. And now I've got a dumb head coach that keeps on throwing me under the bus. No, I think that there's some weird contention in that locker room. There has been for a while. There's
been documented friction going back to last season and earlier between Sirianni and Jalen Hurts, to the point where they barely were speaking to each other. So like that has to, the rest of the team, that vibe has to kind of seep into that locker room, creating a weird kind of tense atmosphere. And if they're losing games, that just compounds things even worse. So it doesn't appear that relationship is getting better at this point. It's probably just stuck in neutral. Unless they can improve that, I would guess if Sirianni doesn't get this team back to the playoffs, Jeffrey Lurie is not going to hesitate to throw him overboard and find somebody else that can get along with their star quarterback.
I'm having a lot of fun introducing Cakes to the world of Gigantor. Another thing that you need to understand about Tor Cakes is that he's got some weird-ass thoughts on quarterbacks in the NFL. This new coolness factor for Jalen Hurts, this is a new one. Tor has been apoplectic with Trevor Lawrence since I've known him because he has long, flowing hair. And then I believe, Tor, you think he's some sort of a poon hound, and that takes away his ability to win football games?
Well, it's like he keeps on getting caught cheating, which is throwing a pick or a near pick, and then he'll be on the night, make good act for 2 plays where he scrambles for 10 yards or has a nice completion. Then he goes right back to cheating, throwing a bad pick, taking a bad sack. He is just a quarterback that doesn't seem like he cares. Every play is a brand new play, which maybe short-term memory is good if you're making a mistake. But I want my quarterback to be a high-powered GPU processor, knowing everything about every mistake, where everyone needs to be. It feels like he's just a beach boy back there throwing the ball to whoever that they put outside in Jacksonville.
He's Blackie Parrish. He's John Stamos.
I think part of that blame also goes on Doug Peterson. It seems like he may be getting lapped by some of the other coaches in the NFL at this point. Like, I don't think he's doing Trevor Lawrence any favors there in Jacksonville. Plus, there's been a lot of wideout flux in that room. Calvin Ridley departs. They have to draft Brian Thomas Jr. out of LSU. They bring in Gabe Davis, who I think his best skill set as a receiver is that he's a really good blocker. He doesn't do much offensively. It's kind of a weird mix of pieces there on the offense in Jacksonville. And maybe it is the fact that Trevor Lawrence has long flowing locks that's causing him to throw picks or whatever. But that's a weird team, and they've been struggling offensively, and I wouldn't expect it to get better as they have to face the Bills on Monday night. They're staring 0-3 right in the face.
Bills, by the way, the team that I said dead in the water, their window has closed, their talent has eroded, and then fucking, of course, they decide that they still are the best team in that division. Bobby Double L, $49.99 super chat. Thank you, brother. Howdy, friendos. Awesome seeing Money Metal Cakes. It is good to see Johnny Cax. Last time I saw Johnny, he was sleeping in a coffin, and I was knocking on it every 3 hours to make sure he was still alive. That's back when radio tour. You don't know nothing about that.
How old was Tor when I was climbing into that coffin for the measly sum of $1,500? That was probably that was back in either 03 or 04. So he had to be a wee little lad at that point.
I hate to keep throwing it in his face, but I bought Tor a car for him to just sit there and casually resent me for about 3 years on this podcast. I mean, Cakes did this for $1,500, And there was one time I remember when you were sleeping in the coffin, I knocked and you had gone to bed.
Right.
And I thought you were dead. I went running down the fucking hallway. Like, when do we call the ambulance? Like, when does this happen?
Hey, they were smart enough to put air holes at both ends of the coffin. I was able to make it out. Didn't get an embolism when I stood up after 48 hours of lying prone, basically like a corpse. I made it through. Still here.
It was fantastic. Thank you, Bobby Double L, for the $49.99 super chat. I want to get to Jerry Jones talking about players. Hogs, that's a really important part of today's broadcast, I think, but I wanted to showcase this too while he's here. This is Jay Gruden, and in a rare photograph with the former logo of the Washington Redskins. I don't know if you've ever seen this photograph, Johnny Cake Sawville. It's very difficult for a coach to get actually photographed with a logo of a former football team that he used to coach, but at least now you have this frame of reference moving forward with all the name change controversies you guys still have to deal with. The Cake Sprees, get the fuck out of here. After all that preamble.
I thought he was just doing a deep inspect on Hot Man's head.
Can't blame him. Look at this. Why does this happen to me, Tor? Why does this constantly happen to me?
You're pitching a no-hitter here with the freezing guests. Don't talk to him on the bench. Just let him keep on rolling.
Before people say that I am the constant, so it must be my cross to bear here. Look, my internet upload speeds are absolutely ridiculous. I take none of the fucking shit for this. There he is.
I'm back.
What happened? I just completely shut you down with my Hot Man Ted Jay Gruden take that I gave you.
Yeah, I missed that. I heard Jay Gruden, and then there was a lot of buffering going on this end.
Sure. Yeah, I get it. Well, I'll show it to you again. This is the coach of the Redskins, former coach with the former logo of the Redskins. Because if Hot Man turns profile, he looks just like the side of the old helmet. How often does Jay come on your show, by the way?
He does not come on our show. He's contractually obligated to a different show. So I think he's been on a couple times, but he's always great when he comes on. I mean, that guy's super entertaining. But he has not been on recently. Though I did see he was just nailing holes in one at Creighton Farms, I think yesterday or the day before.
2 in a row, right? I saw that as well.
It's crazy.
Yeah,
like I couldn't quite make out whether it was like he hit 2 in a row or like he hit one and then somebody else in his foursome hit one. Like the odds of bagging like 2 holes in one in a row, like in one round, it's like 1 in like a trillion. I mean, it's crazy.
I'm sure the rap on Jason Kelsey that everybody says is that's the one guy I'd like to have a beer with. I respectfully disagree. Well, I'm sure that's fun. Jay Gruden is the guy you want to have a beer with, because I got a chance to have a beer with him a couple of weeks ago, and it is a shitload of fun. So if you can make that happen, please.
Oh, I'm sure he probably has 500 great Dan Snyder stories just up the sleeve. Just read. You give him like 4 Miller Lights, and he's off to the races. Would be my guess.
He's not a big fan of one of the Callahans that's coaching with the Tennessee Titans right now. I'll leave it up to everyone's speculation as to which one that is. But
yeah, I'm guessing he's not a big fan of the Callahan who coaches guys that do a lot of this.
A lot of this.
A lot of that. That's the one I'm guessing.
Yeah. Well, there's not a lot of that going on in Tennessee right now, no matter which Callahan it is.
No, there is not. Man, it's ugly.
Which is the worst trash quarterbacks? I mean, Will Levis is washed. I mean, it's just a matter of time. I want them to resign Ryan Tannehill, but Caleb Williams threw. I don't know if you guys saw the pick he threw already today. Anthony Richardson might have thrown the worst interception I've ever seen into the end zone. I mean, other than I'm trying to think, who do you have the most confidence in that isn't playing in Houston at quarterback right now out of this group? This is a rough group we're looking at from this year and last year.
I'll even go back a little further, Chad. I think Deshaun Watson it's pretty close to over. I just don't love what I've seen out of him. I mean, they're letting the Giants beat them right now. There's still time left in that game, but you can't let the god-awful, horrible Giants come into Cleveland and beat you. That's a bad one. Anthony Richardson, like I saw like his completion percentage before today's game. It was like the worst in like the last, I think, 15 years of any quarterback that has started a certain number of games. So I was kind of like a lot of people heading into this season, like he was a fantasy darling because of the fact that he's so big and physical and just can pick up so many yards on the ground and you just truck people left and right. And he has that component built in. But I mean, if he's only going to complete 48 or 50% of his passes, like how long can you not turn to Joe Flacco there, who's his backup? Like at some point he's going to lose his job if the completion percentage and the accuracy and the touchdowns don't come.
How about Joe Flacco took an underperforming playoff team to the playoffs last year when this happened? He can certainly do it with this team. And then who did they sign? Jameis Winston's just sitting there. He's at least going to go down the field. I mean, Deshaun Watson seems to have no ability, and they don't trust him to challenge down the field. So I'm with you. Other than Stroud, I mean, really, we're in a drought here as far as developing young quarterbacks in this league. Not that Deshaun Watson is still a young quarterback. Anthony Pizzo from Pizzo's Cards with the $4.99 super chat. This is the happiest I've ever seen, Tor. Yes, that's true. That's true.
I don't have to watch my team blow it in the 1 p.m. window, so I still have a good amount of joy left in me before Sunday night football.
You know what? While we're piling on quarterbacks, let's give a little bit of praise to a guy that I thought was just dead in the water, and I'll also give praise to his coach, Malik Willis. I mean, Chad, you as a relatively new Titans fan, you know, you saw him. Lifelong Titans fan. I should have known. I see you wearing the throwback Oilers gear. That's very nice.
Since day one.
When the Packers acquired him, I was like, that seems kind of weird. Like with Jordan Love, that's your drop off. Jordan Love down to Malik Willis. But in the last 2 weeks, what LaFleur has done with him, like the super heavy run game plan against the Colts to win at Lambeau, and now they're on the road. They look like they're going to close out a game against the Titans, and Willis has had a really good game. Like he's thrown, I think, for close to 200 yards, maybe more than that by now. I haven't checked the box. I'm pulling it up now.
He's at 199.
He's at 202 passing, 13 of 18, and he's got 6 carries for 73 yards on the ground. He's taking care of the ball. Like LaFleur is turning Malik Willis into a really capable backup quarterback, which is, I thought, a higher ceiling for him than I thought even like a month ago. I just thought he was trash a month ago, but it just shows you with good coaching in a good system against a bad opponent, apparently, that guy can fill in for 2 or 3 games until Jordan Love comes back, apparently.
Blake Willis set a career high in passing yards in the first half of this game. And look, I think this is simple, boys. I think if you have a good head coach and you have a healthy system and you've drafted well and you're developing young players, I don't think this is fucking anything we need to sit here and have a deep dive into. Is that I think you could take any of these kind of middling to average backup quarterbacks that have not developed in what you thought they were going to be and put them in Green Bay or put them in Kansas City, put them in these healthy organizations, and they're going to play this way. And then when you're a bad organization, it's just like what we're seeing in Carolina right now. Do we really believe that if Bryce Young was with Sean McVay in St. Louis / Los Angeles, that he wouldn't be able to run an offense and learn how to be a quarterback? Of course he would. And it's a bigger issue, Cakes, but I always bring it up, and I always bring it up with Sean Salisbury when he's on the show, is I hate the draft. I hate that Bryce Young CJ Stroud got to go where he went, and Bryce Young and neither one of them had any say in it whatsoever, and their entire lives are contingent on it. I just don't think it's the right way to put these teams together.
Yeah, and like with the Panthers, they thought that bringing in Dave Canales, who really helped resuscitate Geno in Seattle and Baker Mayfield in Tampa, that he'd be able to do the same thing with Bryce Young. But look at the dreck on that roster. That roster needs another 2 or 3 years of layering talent, good drafts, good free agency moves. I mean, Bryce Young isn't going to fix that all on his own. The best thing for him, like you touched on, is to get a change of scenery, get with a coach who's supportive. And if he has enough talent and skill, which people thought he did because he went number 1 overall, maybe he can be developed. Like you hate to see him just kind of discarded and thrown away this early in his career. I think he needs to get out of Carolina. He just needs to press the reset button and find somebody that is willing to work with him and willing to develop him.
All right, the problem. One second, Tor. I want to get your thoughts. But here's the latest from that. Glazer actually came out because there was all these the Panthers are swatting down trade requests right now for Bryce Young, and maybe we're going to see him again. This was Glazer on one of the pregame shows.
Teams who actually called the Panthers this week trying to inquire to see if they could trade for Bryce Young, and all 4 teams were told emphatically by Carolina, we are not trading him. We do still think there's a future here. When he plays again this year, or if he starts again this year, it's kind of up to Bryce Young. They wanted to learn from Andy Dalton now and see him make strides.
Okay. No disrespect. What is he going to learn from Andy Dalton after everything that's happened here? This has nothing to do with Andy Dalton. And Tor, if you're Bryce Young, are you playing nice here? Are you saying, okay, you've made your call. I'd like to be someplace else because I can see the writing on the walls with all of the talent, the coordinators, the coaches that this organization has chased off with this maniacal owner that they have?
If they didn't bench him, then you have to stay and play nice. But now that you've been benched as the first overall pick 2 games into year 2, you can start having a little more demands saying, my franchise failed me when I from game 1 to season 2, I have been failed. I'm looking for a new opportunity. I think he should go to Cleveland. I think if the Browns have an opportunity to pull a reverse Baker here, where they botched their number 1 overall draft pick, and now he's finding salvation in Tampa. Now maybe they adopt a former number 1 overall pick, let him grow, and God knows that Cleveland fans would be happy given what they already have now. He would look like a superhero. Just from a personality standpoint, playing football there. And I think that they have a team that is good enough around him to actually help him grow and bail him out in case he does keep on making bad young quarterback decisions and mistakes. That I would try to get off of this Panthers team as quickly as possible if I were Bryce Young. Let it become somebody else. Let it become Andy Dalton's problem now. If you guys really wanted me to learn from him, all right, then let him teach me something. Show me how many games he can win.
And if you're the Panthers, there's no real downside to if you play Andy Dalton for a month, then turn back to Bryce Young. What's the worst that could happen? You're going to wind up picking number 1 overall again in next year's draft, and maybe they love a quarterback in the upcoming draft, and they can draft him and find a suitor for Bryce Young during the offseason. And but I agree. I think the bridges there are burned in Carolina for Bryce Young. I don't see him being in the mix to be their starter after this season is completed. I think he's going to be looking for some new real estate soon.
Boys, piggybacking on this conversation about Carolina Panthers going somewhere else and doing well, Sam Darnold has 3 touchdowns today, 31-7 over the Texans. I don't know where you boys were. I think the Texans are one of the best football teams in the league. At worst, the second best football team in the AFC right now. And you can't say enough about that guy going through everything that he did with these horrible franchises, finding a way out to the 49ers, putting enough on film, to even be given the opportunity to pull a Baker Mayfield. McCarthy goes down, and he ain't going to get his job back until the end of the season because the Vikings are one of the best teams in the NFC right now. Like, if I'm Bryce Allen, I still have Bryce Allen. If I'm in a situation where I have absolutely no support for my organization and I'm not developing here, I can look to multiple other examples in this league and say, I can punch my way out of this corner. I still have an opportunity. And I think I agree with Tor. That's what he needs to be focusing on right now.
Yeah, can I borrow EB's back patting machine, Chad? I'm going to steal it and just pat my back because during our bold predictions before the season started, I'm just going to read it word for word. One of my 3 bold predictions was Sam Darnold turns in a career year leading the Vikings offense, throws for 4,000 plus yards, 28 touchdowns. The Vikings flirt with a playoff bid, fall just short. And you have to love what Darnold's done so far. And Kevin O'Connell he's like a mastermind. It doesn't seem to matter who he's putting into that offense because like a guy like Nick Mullins, look at his numbers when he went in, when Kirk Cousins was hurt last year. I think he had 430 passing yards in a game. Like he can basically put anybody he wants into his system and they tend to be productive. So I feel good for Sam Darnold that he's finally finding some success. He's been an NFL vagabond, over the last few years, trying to find a place. And I think a lot of people rolled their eyes when they saw the Vikings 1-year, $10 million deal for Sam Darnold before the season started. Those people aren't rolling their eyes anymore. No. Those people they're eating a lot of crow at this point because Darnold's been he's been one of the top stories in the NFL through the first 3 weeks.
Well, the annoying part of there's a lot of annoying things about Tom Brady's excellence, but one of the annoying things is it gave low-thinking people that don't watch a lot of football the ability to come out and say, well, they drafted Tom Brady in the last round of the draft, so our franchise can no, they can't. Like that's an anomaly. But we're seeing now these it used to be if you fractured Josh Rosen, I mean, go down Patrick Ramsey, go down the list of these guys that we've covered over the years. Like we're not going to see them resuscitate their career. We're seeing that now. If you get with the right organizations, and it makes, I think you brought this up last week, Tor. I forgot who we had. It might have been Jim Wyatt out of Tennessee, but Deion Sanders coming out and saying, well, my guys aren't going to these teams. It's not going to happen. It's going to be an Eli Manning. I don't know if he has the juice to pull that off, but Jesus Christ, if you're looking at Darnold and Baker and some of these guys that are able to get to a good franchise to put in the right spot and then go ahead and succeed, yeah, I want to try to force that moving forward if I got somebody I think can go first overall in the NFL draft.
I'd say even before the last 5 years. I mean, the seeing what Geno Smith has been able to do in Seattle, and I'm not trying to, make him out to be like an all-pro, but a quarterback that in the back half of his career looks extremely different than the first 5 years of Geno Smith, who was 2 years in New York and then a backup. Maybe the Jets just shouldn't be allowed to draft quarterbacks in the first round. We should just start putting in amendments to who can draft who where, because they just ruin young talented quarterbacks in this league as bad as any other team can.
How good did Rodgers look? I mean, he's running around the field, not just a command of the offense. He looks unaffected by that injury. He's running around like he's 26 years old again. It was amazing to watch that performance.
No, that's a huge shot in the arm for the Jets, because if Rodgers had rust on him coming off, obviously the Achilles tear, then they would have become super one-dimensional on offense, just having to lean on Bryce Hall and a stifling defense to try to get them, 9 or 10 wins. But Rodgers looks like he's turned back the clock like 10 years. Now, it's a small sample size, but if he plays anything like he did in that last game going forward, they're going to be a tough out. And then a guy who's really caught my eye is Braylon Allen, the dude they drafted in the 4th round, the 20-year-old out of Wisconsin. So now they don't have to put it all on Bryce Hall. Bryce Hall doesn't have to carry the ball 23 or 25 times per game. You can spell him with Braylon Allen, who's, just shown light years beyond his age. Like he's NFL ready. He's proving it. And that with Rodgers and that defense, that's going to be a tough squad heading into October and November.
He had that great quote this week too, where everybody found that on Twitter. How the F did Braylon Allen drop into the 4th round? Everyone wanted to see me run in my underwear to decide if I was a good football player. You just fucking love that mindset. And they just have, I mean, now that he feels comfortable, that first start Cakes where he went out there and he would only throw to Garrett Wilson. He would only throw to Bryce Hall. How many different receivers did he throw to in the first half of that game against New England? And New England's not a very good team, but they're going to play defense and they're going to run the football. And they were competitive against Seattle in Seattle. They won their first game.
Yep.
They're not trash just because Rodgers and that offense finally clicked against them. And I saw a lot of that the next day after that game. I didn't like that.
Yeah, I mean, they thumped a division opponent early in the season. And as you mentioned, that was a team that went on the road to beat Cincinnati in week 1. They took Seattle to overtime in week 2. Like, that's not the Carolina Panthers they beat. They throttled a decent, maybe a stretch, but a team that's going to be contending for 5 or 6 wins, but they're feisty. Like they're not a pushover, and the Jets had their way with them.
It looks like the Saints have scored. It is 9-7 now. Chris Olave with a touchdown reception. Looks like Alvin Kamara. Who's got the touchdown there? I take that back. 43 yards.
Olave. I thought Olave had it.
Yeah, he just snagged one in the corner.
Did he really?
Yeah.
God, if the Saints hold on to beat that, I mean, are we looking at a Philadelphia Eagles team? If they're 3-7 in their last 10, now they're going to be 3-8 in their last 11. I mean, do they make a change? When do they consider making a change at head coach? I figure we wait till the end of the year and they make a run at Belichick or Pete Carroll or one of these veteran guys they think can come in and work at this roster, but maybe it happens much sooner than that.
If they think that the NFC is still open enough by October where maybe if it's just a culture change, we can get some momentum and just let our players go out there and play and close out the season, then I would support that call. But if they're just going to be down in the mix and just grinding out losses, odd, weird losses, then just keep Sirianni, let it be the farewell, awful, boo him every game tour. And then the offseason, hit it heavy, go for the best possible coach that you can find. Belichick would work, I think.
Eagles next 3 after today, they're at the Bucks, home to the Browns, at the Giants. So not the toughest schedule, but you want to see more out of this offense going forward than what they've shown. Now, a lot of that is Hurts needs to be better with the ball. Hurts, and it's not all on Hurts. That the route that Devontae Smith ran, they showed it on the replay.
Yeah,
like he needed to come back and fight for that ball, and he didn't quite have that. He just let the defender kind of beat him to the ball. So it's not all on Jalen Hurts, but that Eagles team has some soul searching to do over the next few weeks to get things turned around if they wind up losing in New Orleans today.
You mentioned Tampa. What is up with the Broncos? Just
I don't know.
and putting foot to ass in Raymond James Stadium, 26-7 right now. Maybe Bo Nix, I should have brought him up on one of these. He's certainly in the right system. They certainly can play defense.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Now, the major difference for him today, I don't believe he's turned the ball over. Like he had 4 picks in the first 2 games. And that's just like, if you're doing that, you're not going to obviously compete to win games. But if you can take care of the ball, heavy rushing approach, he rushed for a touchdown earlier today, then you can win games, which is what they're showing right now. That's an impressive win. And that's another reaffirmation of why you just can't play. You can't participate in survivor pools. Like it's
not at all.
It's just dumb. Like I think I finally learned my lesson. Because we like dummies, we all picked the Bengals in week 1 over the Pats. And look, like 35% of the field, we got wiped out. Like it's impossible to pick a winner every week. And today, the early slate today encapsulates that perfectly.
Scratch off tickets or survivor pools of the NFL cakes. What's the bigger cash dump? Or setting your money on fire in your backyard? What is a better way for you to spend your cash?
Yeah, they're all tied for worst ways to just destroy your money and watch it go up in smoke.
Bobby Double L, thank you for the $1.99 super chat. Tor, rank them by looks. Hurts, Lawrence, Cousins.
Ooh,
that's kind of interesting.
Okay. All right.
I would go Hurts 1, Kirk Cousins 2, Trevor Lawrence 3. He might be in the bottom 10 in the NFL.
Wow, man, he does have some. Tor does have some anti-Trevor Lawrence sentiment over there.
Well, if you're supposed to be the best quarterback prospect that the NFL has seen in a decade,
Who
and you
said
go out,
that was 3 years ago. People were saying that
Trevor Lawrence should have resuscitated the Jaguars by now for all the financial help that they have put in by bringing in Christian Kirk, trying to help with the D line, and they keep on stinking it up. So I have no soft feelings rather.
He is also Lawrence. When a guy is 6'6", I don't know why, but like I look down on them even more when they're not successful. If it's when Kyler Murray struggles, cakes, I have no problem with it. I'm like, okay, yeah. he's a small person.
He's 5'10", like he can't even see over the line.
He shouldn't be doing well anyway. Whoa, 111-11. God,
wow,
damn.
That's a big one. That's a big one.
That's what we call a red boy, cakes. You don't see the red boys on here all that often. He didn't even leave a fucking comment. Rick, what did you want to say?
You don't care. He left $111.11. That's what he left.
God damn it. Now I got to Venmo cakes after this was done. It was just a favor up until this point, but now it's...
Now, your Venmo money is no good here, sir. Now, if you had Eric Bickle on right now...
Well, that would be a wrap.
He would take your Venmo money in a heartbeat.
Nobody loves... I don't love anything. I love cheesesteaks as much as Eric Bickle loves Venmos. I can say that.
He does love it.
All right, let's take a look here. I don't know what to make, boys, of the Steelers being 3-0 and beating the Harbaugh-led San Diego Chargers. Like, that's a tough one. That's a team that I have been filleting as much as I possibly can out in Los Angeles. I know Justin Herbert they didn't even know if they thought it was going to be Easton Stick time today. But man, if Fields continues to win, does it matter if the stats are there? Does Russell Wilson ever get to go back on the field? Like, how does that work? Thank you again, Rick Austin.
Oh, I mean, I think if Fields keeps leading them to wins, even if it's, like him just rushing in a touchdown and they get a few Chris Boswell field goals, it doesn't matter. I don't think Russell Wilson is seeing the field unless Fields goes out there and just lays 2 or 3 weeks consecutive of just the biggest eggs ever. I think Fields has got a stranglehold on the job as of now. I just don't see a scenario where Wilson comes back.
Go back to what I said about Darnold going to Minnesota. Good coach, good fan base, great market, history, stability. There's just a calm about the Pittsburgh Steelers where if I'm Justin Fields, it's like, we're going to win 8 games if I come out here and line up backwards. And I just can't even imagine what that must do for a quarterback psyche, knowing they're in that situation.
It's a dream situation in Pittsburgh right now, because before they had even named the starter, you and I were discussing that you kind of have to name Wilson the starter to kick off the year, just for optics sake and for how bad both of them were last year. So going with the young guy over the vet just didn't make sense for Pittsburgh. But now we have a phantom calf injury, and Justin Fields has us at 3-0. What's the defense for putting Russell Wilson in now, unless we see a total collapse? You couldn't have chalked it up better for Pittsburgh to go up and beat patty cake Atlanta and start grinding them out and now getting a big win against the Chargers. It's perfect.
And then, and the beauty of it is they've allowed 10, 6, and 10 points. That's how they're doing it. They're winning with defense, and Fields isn't turning the ball over a ton. You know, he's taking care of he's a caretaker of the offense, led by Arthur Smith. You know they're going to want to pound the ball if Arthur Smith is your OC. And I'm sure that dovetails with Mike Tomlin's philosophy too. He's never been accused of being a guy who has a super high-flying offense. So it's just working. It's all melded together, at least through the first 3 games.
Do you think Justin Fields spends any time, boys? Caleb Williams is some garbage. He already has 2 interceptions today, but they let him throw the ball 43 times today, and he went over 300 yards. Did Justin Fields get to throw the ball 43 times in 3 weeks when he was starting for the Chicago Bears? Do you think he looks at that like, well, at least they're giving him a shot to go out there and run an offense instead of just being a third running back on the field?
I mean, the only time I can think of Fields throwing the ball that much may have been against the Commanders last year on Thursday Night Football. And he probably didn't have to do it. Sorry, Tor, but that game was an abject embarrassment. That game
I was there. I was in person watching DJ Moore go for 3 touchdowns and with all brought my friends. Everyone's in their
Who paid for the tickets? I know you didn't pay for no goddamn seats.
Money Mug from Muck's Barbecue.
Money Mug. I give you better thank for those seats. I remember that. Rick sent the $100. He said, "My wife is drunk in Barlesville Winery. No one here to stop me, and I won $100 injury betting with the Falcons game. Thank you again, corporate quarterback Kirk Cousins." All right. Well, thank you. I appreciate you paying it forward, Haley Joel Osment. All right, boys. You've already seen this. I'm sure the audience has seen it as well, but
hey, that's pretty good about there. He showed balance. 5, 9.5, 210. 5, 9, 210. 4, 4, 1. Okay. 9 and 3-inch head. 8.5-inch dick.
Cut the feed.
Doesn't Jerry Jones know that penis shtick? That's the almost exclusive domain of radio shock jocks / podcasters. Like that's ours. That he's on our turf now. What is he doing?
Oh my God!
Come on, Jerry.
If people start pearl clutching about speculating to the size of professional athletes' genitals, I'm already up shit creek. You guys are up shit creek. Everybody that I know is up shit creek because you talk about what's possibly in those football pants as much as you do whether or not they're going to run play action next.
Yeah, but to me, it sounded like Jerry. I don't think he was speculating. It sounded like he just knows. Like he knows. Jerry knows something. Which is weird. That's kind of weird.
Jerry lives a good life, Tor, but would you be the most envious of his life if he really does know the hog length of each person inside of the Dallas Cowboys locker room?
It does, and having that privilege is just unbelievable because you just have all the information. You know what every man is made of on your football team, and this is the most I've ever liked Jerry Jones. It's probably the most conversational tone I've ever heard him hold. Was talking with Jamie Foxx on an Instagram Live talking about a player's song. Yeah. Give me more of that. It's the most likable Jerry Jones has ever been.
Cakes, it's impossible to have this conversation with Tor because he doesn't know anything about anything that happened before 1996. So I'm going to ask you. I said Greg Oden is the #1 athlete hog, but Visanthe Shanko has got to be there.
Forgot about him. That's a good old school pull by you, big shooter.
Thank you very much. Of course, Chris Cooley's, who we all love for the
comedic value. I've got one. I've got it.
Let's hear it.
Why are we sleeping on Santonio Holmes?
Oh, that's such a good one.
Come on, guy.
Is that the 1 seed? Is Antonio Holmes the 1 seed athlete?
I mean, it's got to be up there.
Did you hear the same rumors I did about Jabbar Gaffney's hog when he was with the Washington Redskins?
I've heard those rumors, yes. Believe that. Also, a lot of rumors about Greg Olson.
Okay.
A lot of those were he was spreading those rumors himself when he was rapping at the U back in the day.
So he pulled a Shannon Sharp where you think he wanted to get some disinformation out because he wanted to control his own narrative.
Maybe. I believe he dubbed himself Third Leg Greg. You never heard that, Big Shooter? Come on.
I don't think
where have you been?
I remember Big Dick Nick, but that was Nick Foles when he went down the field.
That's another good one. That's another solid one. Though I don't think we have like visual evidence. We just heard folklore.
I don't think if you just name yourself something that has to do with your penis, it means that you're gifted in that way. I mean, I like visual confirmation on
I hear you, but if you're gonna do that and you're a high profile guy, I feel like you better have the goods if you're giving yourself a nickname like that. You know what I mean? Because at some point you're gonna be exposed if you're not.
It's not in the nickname category, but Trent Brown, who has the tattoo on his arm of 2 women going down on himself, his own.
Christ.
I have to assume if you're going to get a tattoo of that, you're working with something really strong.
That is a racy tattoo, if I might say.
Is that a less enviable tattoo than Sean Merriman, who would do the lights out dance, and he actually tattooed a lights off switch on his forearm so that he could turn the lights off while he was doing the fucking dance?
That guy can do no wrong. He's a Terp. That's my guy, Sean Merriman. Love him.
That's not a good look. Slider $4.99. Thank you, brother. Down payment for a Hog Talk trademark podcast. Ooh. Count me in for a founding membership. Now, Cakes, I don't want you to have to go to management and say, Chad Dukes and I are hosting a penis podcast. What if we put it behind a Patreon paywall? I think we can get it done there.
Hey, I love multiple revenue streams, Dukes. You know this. I'm a hustler.
I know you are. There's a guy, you gotta have a lot of hoses in the pool, Cakes. That's the way that I
guess so.
All right, we're going to wrap things up here, boys. 4:15, of course, late games are going to kick off. We like doing this each and every week. If you enjoy the show, we're on podcasting on iTunes and Spotify. You go ahead and sign up for free. Also, here on YouTube, we stream on Mondays and Thursdays. We stream with Sean Salisbury. We talked about the Steelers winning. Texans got the ball, but it's over for them. What do we got here with the Giants are up 21-15 with the ball, 2 minutes and 23 seconds left. If the Browns go on to lose this game and Deshaun Watson has 67 yards passing, fellas, do we think...
I mean, you got to turn to Jameis Winston at some point. What is Stefanski waiting for? Like, if Watson, especially if his shoulder is banged up, which seems to be the case, and can't push the ball downfield, like, you got a guy who will sling it in Jameis. Now, he's going to throw the ball to the other team, too. You got to live with that. But I've got to like my chances better with Jameis at this point than a dead-armed Deshaun Watson.
Yeah, one good throw every 4 drives from Deshaun Watson versus what I would guess is a good throw, a drive from Jameis, which is all you ever really need in my mind if you have a good running attack and a good offensive line. That they need to do it quickly because I think the defensive woes in this game are taking place because they've been on defense all fucking year because the offense keeps on going 3 and out. So they're getting so much more burn early, and that does not help them for the rest of the year, having a defense that's constantly backpedaling, trying to recoup. If you have an offense that could maybe just take up a little bit of time, the defense goes back to true form and they don't lose to the Giants in embarrassing fashion.
Speaking of the NFC East, another update, the Eagles now lead the Saints 15-12. Less than a minute left. Saquon with a monster game, 147 on the ground, 2 touchdowns for him. He looks to be saving them from what could have been an ugly loss.
And we talked about on this showcase all these big name running backs, Josh Jacobs, Derrick Henry, all these guys moving on. Joe Mixon, I know that he's dinged up, but who was going to have the biggest impact in their new home? Thus far, it's Saquon Barkley, who had multiple times this year already has put that team on his back. I wanted to circle back to the quarterback position you guys are talking about with the Browns, because I think it might also apply to the Miami Dolphins, who are just signing skells off people's practice squads to come in there. Cakes, remember when Russ Grimm was I think he was the offensive line coach for Pittsburgh, and then he was out in Phoenix, and he would go and he would interview for jobs, and it wouldn't go well. Like Eric Bieniemy was another guy. He would interview for all these coaching positions, and people would pass. And I think they're rough when they get in the room to talk about the job. Ryan Tannehill has been to the postseason. He's won 12 games for the Titans. We know that he wants to start. He's made it very clear that he wants to play. Why are the Browns not saying we'll give you $1 million a year? Here's some incentive. Here's what we did with Flacco last year. Why haven't the fucking Miami Dolphins, who employed him at one point, called him up? I wonder why he seems to be toxic right now.
Yeah, I don't know why he's persona non grata. Like if you have any sort of athletic talent left at quarterback, you should be getting a call at this point, because the quarterbacking has been subpar through the first 2.5 weeks of the season. There have been a lot of bad, dismal performances. And look, I'd rather trot out Ryan Tannehill than Skylar Thompson. We've seen what Skylar Thompson does when Tua goes down. Like, everybody's numbers go down. His yards per attempt go way down from Tua's. I think Tua's like at 7.8 yards per attempt. Skylar Thompson's like 5.4 yards per attempt. Like, it just doesn't work. Like, your offense, is going to become dysfunctional. So I agree with you. Like, these teams that don't want to call a veteran quarterback, I'm not sure exactly why they're so hesitant.
Last thing, Bears are down 21-9 to the Colts. They have the ball, but barring a miracle, it ain't gonna happen. I know Roma Dunze and Caleb hooked up for that one long pass. I know that Keenan Allen's been dinged up, but this wasn't a team people thought was going to compete this year, boys. This was a team that people said, will Caleb Williams be the first rookie quarterback to win a Super Bowl, which seemed to be ridiculous. But I don't know how much brake pumping is needed about that entire experiment, but Jesus Christ, think about the hype train this offseason with how much they pillaged the Panthers and how great their offseason was, and the Montez Sweat move towards the end of last year. This is not starting the way that I thought that it would at all. And then the Vikings are way better than we thought they'd be. The Packers are winning with their backup quarterback, and the Detroit Lions are a good football team. Looking rough for the Bears right now.
Yeah, I kind of bought into the hype too. Like, I thought that he was landing in a really good spot because they had a top 10 pick in a Dunze. They brought in Keenan Allen. They already had DJ Moore there. They had an established tight end in Cole Kmet. So I was like, he's surrounded by a lot of good weapons, but it just shows you that even if you're the number one pick, there's acclimation. It takes some time. It's not always going to be the way CJ Stroud did it. Like, I think CJ Stroud ruined it for a lot of these young quarterbacks, where now ownership is like, well, why aren't you leading us to the playoffs in your first year? Like, why isn't it happening? Whereas 10 or 15 years ago, 20 years ago, like, there were never those sort of expectations on rookie signal callers, even the guys who were picked number one. So he's going to go through some growing pains. I think long term it's going to help him, but it's been a rough start. They're going to fall to 1-2. And on the other side, Anthony Richardson, same sort of deal. 10 for 20, completed 50% of his passes. Now, they won the game, but that's another guy who's young and still trying to find his way. But again, we shouldn't be that surprised, because hasn't he started like 20 games since high school?
Yeah.
Like, or less. Like, he just doesn't have a lot of experience. Like, Caleb at least has a little more experience, but the guys who are just getting thrown into the fire without a lot of college starts, those are the guys that I'd really be wary about going forward.
I still believe it's going to slow down for Caleb Williams, but the Bears almost had a bit of an arrogance about them, where I guess
I agree.
Maybe the media and the Bears a bit also, because they did so well in the preseason. It never seems like they're prepared for pressure, and they think that everyone was going to treat Caleb Williams with bubble wrap, just because the media wants them to be really good. No, these are NFL defenses, and if your quarterback can't handle a pressure or a blitz in the A gap, we're going to keep on sending that pressure and blitz in the A gap until he can find throw a receiver open in man coverage. And when he starts doing that, Chicago is going to be dangerous. But right now, the Bears are just going to keep on going through these pains until his eyes catch up with what his brain is seeing.
All right, so Tor's got another 4 hours or so before he has to start cutting himself. Let's see. Commanders-Bengals kicks off here Cakes at Paycor Stadium in 5 minutes. If I'm a Washington fan, I'm terrified, because it's a Bengals team that woke up against the Chiefs, kind of had them dead to rights, played lights out. And I know the Commanders won, and you've got a rookie quarterback, and it's a divisional opponent. You don't want to lose the locker room. They can't score touchdowns. And Jaden Daniels, statistically, I guess people are happy where he is. He takes vicious, brutal hits consistently and on a regular basis when already had the trainers come out. Give me your vibe on how you think this looks on the road against what I still think is one of the best teams, with T. Higgins coming back, by the way.
I think you're going to see an expansion of Jaden Daniels in the passing game. Like, I like that Kingsbury isn't trying to force feed him everything too quickly. I don't mind it being a little more horizontal than vertical at this point. I'd be much more concerned about the fact that the secondary for the Commanders, they don't have an answer for any passing attack. And we know Burrow wants to get Jamar Chase going. You mentioned Higgins is coming back. Mike Gesicki has been kind of a revelation for them at tight end, with Higgins being sidelined. I would just expect a big Burrow type of night, a big Burrow to Chase. Maybe they ease Higgins in. I wouldn't expect him to get the full complement of snaps, but if you target Jamar Chase 12 to 14 times, which I think is going to happen against this defense, I think he's just going to have his way. It's going to look like what Malik Neighbors did to the Commanders last week. Commanders were lucky enough to get out with a win in that one by kicking 7 field goals. I don't think the same thing happens against the Bengals. I think the Commanders are pesky and they may hang around for a while, but I would guess this is probably a 28-17 win for the Bengals at home. They finally get on the board.
I don't know if you feel the same way, Tor, but this feels like a Zach Moss for $119 and 2 touchdowns type of afternoon as well.
Well, the Commanders get double shafted. They're in primetime Monday night. I don't love that for them.
Nope.
And the Bengals were forced to wake up early from their hibernation this season by having to play the Chiefs in week 2. So they, instead of taking the full September off, I think that now they got their adrenaline shot and they're going to start playing real football, which doesn't look good for the Commanders, because I don't know if the Commanders could put up 40 points. I know that the Bengals can against that defensive backfield and that defense. So Zach Moss, I think, could definitely take advantage of all the first-round defensive tackles that Washington has drafted and just run right past them for countless first downs in the game. It could be like a 35 to 14. Until Jaden Daniels starts really dotting up in the end zone, I'm going to think that the Commanders are going to score 14 points a game.
What is it? So I was watching Rodgers' baseball slide, and I know he's 40 and he's had a long time to do it, but I just don't know why it is so difficult. I forgot, was it Griffin Cakes where they were going to bring in like a sliding coach for him?
Yeah.
Like a former baseball
RG3,
player.
yep.
Why is that, do you boys think? And I know, Tor, you played in college, so you played with guys that had reached the next level. Why is it so difficult for these guys to understand you need to protect yourself, and that should be probably the first thing that's in your head before you go through your progressions? I can't believe how many times I watch Kyler Murray or Lamar Jackson initiate contact still. That should never be happening. And Jane Daniels would be at the top of my list for that if I was a Commanders fan.
I think it's because all their lives, the quarterback in high school and college has been the best athlete on the field, and they could get away with running through people because, hey, I'm going to a D1 college and maybe probably the NFL after this. I'm going to run right through a JV kid that just got pulled up that's thinking about chemistry homework. And then in college, you're now really training, and your body is just jump skipping evolution into premier athlete. And now in the NFL, everyone's at that level. So when you think that you can get away with it like you did in high school and college, you get the NFL, you take a couple hits and say, I really got to learn how to not take any more hits from these brutal linebackers that are just trying to take my head off.
And I think some of it is, I think these guys think that they're picking up a little more extra yardage if they're barrel rolling or going head first than they are by sliding. And maybe that's the case, but yeah, I would want him protecting himself at all costs, especially because he's a tall, skinny, wiry guy, something I can't relate to. I've never been tall or skinny, so I can't relate, but like, he got lit up in the game against the Giants, and he was down prone on the field, and I was like, oh my God, like this, everybody's worst fears are coming to realization. Now, luckily, he just got the wind knocked out of him, but that could have easily been a cracked rib or two, and then he misses, I don't know, 2 or 3 games, and then it's hello, Jeff Driscoll. And nobody wants that.
Nobody wants that to be the text message that comes through on their two-way right before it blows up. Hello, Jeff Driscoll. That would be the worst thing you could possibly see. Largemouth asks $20 super chat. Love Hellbent for Leather Cakes. Look at this. That would have been a song you could have named, by the way, Tor, at the beginning of the show.
I think Tor should go home and listen to Defenders of the Faith track by track, and he might have a newfound appreciation for one Judas Priest.
They're in the Hall of Fame, Tor.
Hoffers
they are.
Yep.
Dennis Hoffers. All right, very good. Cax, thank you so much for the time today. It was great catching up with you. Love talking football with you, buddy. Thank you so much. I'd
Thanks
say
for
plug
having me.
anything, but you have a larger audience, so don't worry about it. We'll catch
Later,
you there.
boys.
There's our guy, Johnny Cakes Allville from the fantastic Junkies in the Morning radio program. Do you know, Tor, quick bit of trivia. When they left WJFK, when I was the intern, and they went to 99.1 HFS, they made them change the name of the show from the Sports Junkies to the Junkies in the Morning, because the Nudniks that were running WHFS, which is a rock and roll station at the time, thought that all of the nerdy emo kids with the earplugs and the eyeshadow would be put off if the word sports was in the title of the show, even though the Junkies had 10 times the ratings of anything going on WHFS at the time. These are the same people, I think, that changed KFC, Kentucky Fried Chicken, to KFC, and Dunkin' Donuts just to Dunkin', because they're worried that people will think they'll get fat if they eat their food.
Well, how can management ever prove that they're doing their job if they don't make a bad decision, or at least put their hands all over a working thing? It's pretty insufferable to see some moves that are being made currently and previously, and just understand that it's overreach from consultant or overreach from corporate greed.
Can you imagine if you're like, all right, we're going to hire Pat McAfee, but we're not going to call him Pat McAfee because we're worried that people don't like Pat McAfee. And it's like, well, then why are you hiring him? Why would you change the branding of the show that the reason why you're coming after them is they have 10 shares at night? You boobs.
You can't be a pirate if having a name on the seas scares you. All right. So just understand what you're signing up for, and stand by your decision. Everyone's always looking to blame it on somebody else.
That was a wild moment. And then they were like the Junkies in the Morning. And then I remember people calling in and being like, are they just on drugs? I was literally screening calls the day they went live on HFS. Like, why are they junkies? Like, are they on drugs? Like, what are they junkies of? And I'm like, it's a really good point. It's a really good fucking point. I wish I could help you out. I'm just an intern here. And whenever a wrestler that they don't want to interview comes through, I get to sit in the production studio and interview them for a podcast that doesn't exist. That's a shoot, by the way. I interviewed Triple H for Blade Trilogy because they didn't know who he was, and I got to talk to him about fucking Stephanie McMahon. It was absolutely fantastic.
Hell yeah.
Stephen N. Gray, you're not blocked. You're just drunk at 4 o'clock on a fucking Sunday. Get a hold of yourself. Go to AA.
Save it till after this show, like I do.
All right, so let's wrap it up. I know you got to get going because you got a big night ahead of you. Are you going to be able to enjoy these games? This was called the biggest game in the is it Mercedes-Benz Stadium, Gigantor, that you playing? The biggest game in the history of that stadium going down tonight. Gigantic win for the Falcons, of course. This past week, we all watched it unfold live. We all thought they were the ones that deaded the Philadelphia Eagles, but the Chiefs come to town 2-0. Falcons are giving 3 at home. The big question is, Tor, will you be able to enjoy the 4 o'clock slate of games, and what is on the menu for tonight's depression eating?
The depression eating is actually going to be a nice meal tonight. I have lots of leftovers that my mom prepared for me, so I won't have to go and buy a frozen chicken and broccoli with Alfredo, lean cuisine. I can just eat that and be happy with it. But this is going to be a disaster tonight because the Falcons are honoring what I believe one of the best owners in all of sports, Arthur Blank, tonight, who is giving out 100,000 free hot dogs at the game. Limit 2 per time, 2 hot dogs max every time you go up to the booth. But the caveat, if you want to stand by the hot dog booth and keep ordering them, you can have as many hot dogs as you want. So I'm very jealous I can't be at this game.
That's fantastic.
The worst possible thing that I could be living by is a train track within about 50 yards. Because depending on how this game goes, and when they bring Travis Kelce into the booth at halftime, just because, then they're
going to bring Travis Kelce into the booth.
Well, I think it's going to be.
So he's going to go up in his pads and do commentary. Like, you better hope the fucking Falcons kick off, or they might need him down on the field.
It's going to be Tirico and Collinsworth and Kelce, and then. Maybe like Mahomes' dad stops in, and it's just going to be a fun. They're going to be doing a nice podcast between two ferns while the game's going on and watching Atlanta. Maybe keep it gritty, but then eventually collapse.
This, for those of you that don't know how upset Tor is about life, this was the meme that we made after the goddamn Falcons won. is that the crippling depression was pulling on his t-shirt and stripping it away from his bodice. So a loss mounts their tailspin, of course. Hey, man, just become a Titans fan. They lose every week, so you don't have to worry about it. I mean, it's not even a question how the dough flows.
They were like the best team in the AFC before you started your life.
The year they were my team.
They were good. They were really good.
Tell me. One of the reasons why I'm a Titans fan, I was like, they're at least competitive. You know, I can't choose the Chiefs or the Patriots, but I can choose the Titans. Like, that's a good team. And I've done what I do to everyone in my life. I've corrupted them absolutely. Ethan said, love Chad and Tor on Sundays. Thank you so much. Well, listen to us during the week. Monday we'll be on, and then Friday this week for Sal's. We actually pushed that to Friday, so that'll be fun. Oh boy, that was fun. Cakes, it's cool, right? Was that fun for you?
Very fun for me. He's pleasant, and then also awesome. Cakes flexing a good amount of the knowledge, like he's doing a radio spot. It was impressive.
It's almost like he talks about football for 4 hours a day.
Yeah, I know. One of the few on the show that seems to like the sport.
All right, Jesus Christ! Now you're taking shots. Now that the guy's gone, he's right though. If I had tried to book EB, I would have had to send the Venmo up front. I might have to. Oh boy, would you like to hang out with Cakes for a short time or for a long time, Tor?
Oh, I would say a long time.
Hey, what do you got?
Both types of sports.
Yeah, what's it do? Go long. Real long. Nice toss.